These people want to live forever. And they want to create this virtual world that will house your spirit. Well, so they think. A beautiful December morning to you. Thank you for joining me this morning. All our family members and visitors around the world. Our Sunday morning service is especially for you. I want to welcome those of you that have joined our ministry recently from abroad, from even the inside of South Africa. Welcome. Welcome to our wonderful family, and our hearts are blessed to have you with us. I want to thank our people for making sure that financially we are able to sustain ourselves. May God bless you for that, for your tithes, for your offerings. Once again, don't forget that I want to remind you we are making collection for hampers for Christmas. We have a few destitute families that need your assistance. So if the Lord leads you, please be part of this drive. And I'm ready to continue with this morning's sermon. You will realize over the past few years, I've been making a concerted effort to make you informed, give you knowledge about a hidden hand that drives all world processes. And one of the main goals that they have is to destroy human life, to kill. And that's the nature of Satan. Jesus told us about him in the book of John, that that's his nature. And one of the reasons why he wants to kill is because he wants to destroy what God made and what God admires and wants to fellowship with, the human being. There is nothing that has been created that is like the human being. And there is a jealousy inside of Satan, which he installs in all of his agents to feel the same way. And if not kill, at least hybridize the human by modifying their spirit or their genes. And you'll see that not only is it done to human beings, but plants are being modified genetically inside of them from their core. You'll find animals are being killed and others are being modified. So the entire creation that God has put in place that is functional, the enemy wants to make it dysfunctional. Now, I'm going to read to you the book of Genesis chapter 1 verse 31. And this explanation and teaching that I'm going to give you regarding this one verse may alter the way you think. It's going to lift you or transition you into a new level of understanding a principle. So let's read the book of Genesis. Then God saw everything that he had made, and indeed it was very good. So the evening and the morning were the sixth day. Now I want you to look. I doubt you've ever taken the time to study it, or any teacher has taken the time to share this with you. But this will lift your level of understanding. And if we look at the original Hebrew term that is used in this passage that has been written in English, let's look at the Hebrew. That word good, in Hebrew it's tov. Tov. And that word evil is Ra. You'll see Wara means and evil. Ra is evil and Tov is good. Now let's look at the etymology, the root of the words. What does good or Tov mean? The first use of this word is in Genesis chapter 1, where Yahuwah or Jehovah calls his handiwork good, Tov. It should always be remembered that the Hebrews often relate descriptions to functionality. The word Tov would be translated with the word functional. When Yahuwah looked at his handiwork, he did not see that it was good, rather that he saw that it was functional. Kind of like a well-oiled and tuned machine. And God said that word, if you read again, and indeed it was very functional. In contrast to this word is the word Ra. These two words, Tov and Ra, are used for the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. While Ra is often translated as evil, it is best translated as dysfunctional. Now, this new insight tells us that the devil wanted or sought to make a very functional human being and a very functional world. He wanted to make it dysfunctional. So he installed that dysfunctional nature of his into Eve, who transmitted it into Adam, and so the whole world became dysfunctional, chaos, disorder. So that is his main prerogative, to make what God made dysfunctional. And you'll see that as we're nearing the end of times, we start to see the end results of the dysfunction that started in the Garden of Eden. Everything is dysfunctional. And we might get into it as the Lord leads in the coming weeks. However, for now, they want the hidden hand, that is, the cabal, the Freemasons. They want the world to believe that the human being has made the climate dysfunctional. And so they have been pushing this agenda of climate change for some time now, decades. But it is coming to a head where the World Economic Forum not very long ago declared a great reset, as you will remember. And the main driver of this great reset is declimatization. In other words, having sustainable development in the world with a view to limiting the changes of our climate. Because they want to pretend that nobody is altering weather patterns. They want us to believe that over the years, the atmosphere has been affected by the use or the manufacturing and the living, the normal living of human beings. And in so, they have killed animals, and you've seen and I've showed you that they needed to get rid of cows because apparently the fertilizer that they need, it pollutes the air. They killed the chickens because of disease, and they want to change and modify those poor animals. They've done it over and over again, all in the name of climate change. Now, I want you to look at the top companies in the world that are responsible, the top 5 for gas emissions that contribute to the so-called climate change. Saudi Aramco, Chevron, Gazprom, Exxon Mobil, National Iranian Oil, and BP. 6. Now let's look at Saudi Aramco. So when BlackRock announced in July that it would appoint Amin Nasser, the head of the world's largest oil company Aramco, to its board, investors and politicians immediately called out Fink on what they said was hypocrisy. In December 2021, BlackRock led an investor consortium that spent $15.5 billion to buy 49% stake in Aramco's natural gas pipeline. So the biggest shareholder in Aramco is BlackRock. And we all know who BlackRock is. A conglomerate of fake Jews, Ashkenazi Jews, or Isawites, or as we know them by now, Edomites. They rule and started BlackRock. The next one is Chevron. Chevron lists 4 major institutional shareholders, and they are State Street Corporation. Vanguard and BlackRock, by the way, own major shares in State Street Corporation. So State Street Corporation is made up of Vanguard and BlackRock. And then Warren Buffett, who owns Berkshire Hathaway Incorporated, and then separately Vanguard and separately BlackRock owns majority of the shares of Chevron. Let's look at Gazprom. Now this is a Russian-owned company. The shareholders, as you can see, the third one is BlackRock Advisors. Then we get Exxon Mobil. The largest shareholder includes Vanguard and BlackRock. BP, you can see there Vanguard and BlackRock. Who started BlackRock? Larry Fink, 1988, under the corporate umbrella of the Blackstone Group. Fink founded BlackRock and became its director and CEO. So since 1988, this Jewish man, Larry Fink, started and ran BlackRock. His early education tells us that he came up in a Jewish family. So we know who these people are. But the people, the World Economic Forum, who want the world to reduce gas CO2 emissions around the world, all of us, they want to take away different things that we use, our plastics and so forth and so on. And there's much changes that are coming now. Our animals, we can't even eat a proper cow. They want to make synthetic cows for us. They don't want to grow rice normally because apparently it creates CO2 and causes the ozone layer to be diminished and a lot of things. The WEF is in the center of this. But Larry D. Fink is a member of the board of trustees of the World Economic Forum. And now I just gave you the top 6, but there's hundreds of companies that pollute that Larry Fink is the head of, not to mention what Vanguard is doing. This Larry Fink is also a contributor to the World Economic Forum. So I want you to look at a picture. If there are people still who listen, who are tuned in, who have faith in the World Economic Forum and the platform they use to change the world in the Great Reset, have a think about what they're telling you is the truth or not. But the main reason why this agenda is being pushed, because it's a Satan-driven agenda to make the world and the people in it dysfunctional. Because when you eat something that's genetically modified, it will cause dysfunction to you. When you poke poison into your arm, it will cause the human to dysfunction. Now, you might have seen some erratic behavior in people in those TikTok videos, how drivers in the trucks just go off track like something has taken over them. Now, this is the dysfunction, and you'll see people who were playing football just collapse, people who are in sport just fall down, and some of them die. But you can see the level of dysfunction that manifests in what they're doing. So, the nature of Satan as a dysfunctional being himself is driving the process. So that's the goal, to make the world dysfunctional. So, last week and the week before, if I'm not mistaken, I've asked you that are following, that are part of our family, that you need to start focusing on Jesus as much as you have to focus on your daily walk in this world with your family and your work and all that. Your focus, your attention, don't lose focus with the eyes of Jesus. Fix it on him. And God will reveal things to you that will keep you from becoming what the enemy wants you to become, dysfunctional. Now, I just want to set a warning before I preach to you anything further. Maybe you didn't realize this. Although God has permission of life and death over you, if you were to die, the devil he cannot kill any human being without the permission of God. He cannot take life unless the person opens the door for life to be taken. However, the ultimate control is, even if a person opens a door, God decides when that life is over. However, I want to help you to understand this part. That as we saw in Job, Satan can petition God for your life. He can go to God and petition God for life. And if God allows him, that's goodbye. So therefore, I need you to fix your eyes on Jesus so that he can be the author and finisher of your faith in a way that he has planned out for you, rather than you opening a door unnecessarily. Now I want to bring to you the story of the Battle of Armageddon. Now Britannica tells us Armageddon, or the hill of Megiddo in the New Testament, place where the kings of the earth under demonic leadership will wage war on the forces of good at the end of history. Armageddon is mentioned in the Bible only once, in the Revelation to John or the Apocalypse of Saint John. Now, the Palestinian city of Megiddo, located on a pass commanding a road connecting Egypt and Syria, was probably chosen as a symbol for such a battle, because it had been the scene of many military encounters owing to its strategic location. Megiddo was also the site of a crucial battle in 1918 during the First World War, and lent its name to the victor, Lord Allenby of Megiddo. The term Armageddon has often been used by Protestant fundamentalists to refer to the impending cataclysmic struggle between the forces of good and evil. It has been used figuratively often by peace activists to describe a possible nuclear war. As you can see where Megiddo is located. Now, because God has warned us through prophecy, and as we read John the Apostle, we cannot ignore any event in the last days that starts in that region. And that's the reason why I've taken so much of time to make you aware of the things that are happening and the escalation that is resulting. Because it is of interest to those who know that Jesus was talking about this very land in the last days. Now, just to alert you that this is the beginning of the end of days. Something has definitely shifted. I want you to look at what's happening in Palestine at this moment. It is a sort of template for what will happen all over the world, either post-tribulation or during tribulation. Where people, now let me tell you what's happening to the people briefly. What has happened to them, what's happening to them, so that you can now put in place, if it's happening there now on this small scale, it is destined to happen to the whole world on a very much larger scale. So this is like a template. It's a mirror image of what the hidden hand wants to do around the world. Now, I mentioned to you much about how Palestine was robbed of their land by Britain. They gave it to so-called Israelites who migrated there, and they decided that that region of Jerusalem and the West Bank and East Bank and all that area, they want to also use, and then they want to use the entire area, and they gave, I told you, a 40 kilometer long strip called the Gaza Strip to the Palestinians, and they left some of them inside the West Bank. But when they settled in there, so imagine if you're living in a house now in your area, you bought it, you worked for it, you paid for it, and you enjoy it with your family, and suddenly a government from another part of the world decides that they're going to give it to another nation, and then they all come in to where you live, and they tell you to pack up your things and you must leave and go to a small strip somewhere where all of you 2.2 million people must live in a 40 by 10 kilometer, 400 square kilometer strip. That's a very small area. 2.2 million. So every house had to be abandoned inside the whole of what is now Israel. Everything that they worked for, they had to leave it behind, and they all had to move and settle in Gaza as refugees. And that's why inside Gaza you'll have refugee camps, because those are people that were living in places like Tel Aviv and other places in Israel, and they had to come and squeeze up and live in this little strip. That was the law. And in South Africa we had something very similar, where people of color had to leave their houses, their lands, and move to a settlement somewhere. And the houses and land were forcefully taken over because of something called the Group Areas Act. So only white people had to live in a certain place and cannot mix. So this is how the Palestinians were treated in 1948. So everybody had to trek with everything to this land and leave everything they had worked for behind. And so these mainly peace-loving people, were now controlled militarily by Israel that surrounded Gaza. And you cannot leave Gaza. The Palestinians could not leave over the last many decades. They can't leave without a passport and without permission to leave that strip to go anywhere. Israel controlled what comes in and what comes out. Food, water, electricity. They control the sea on the outside, so that anything that comes there has to be controlled by Israel. So they had a total siege of this place. And now, you know, the punishment, like, I mean, the Palestinians, like a child, for example, if, you know, they heard about how they were robbed, and this pain that's inside of them and how they getting treated. Sometimes children manifest it and they throw stones. But for throwing stones, a child is jailed for up to 20 years in an Israeli prison. There have been arrests for no apparently good reason. You'll see in some articles how the population was controlled by the ID system. I want to play you a little video about what a smart city might look like, not in terms of the development, but in terms of monitoring. I want you to have a look at a brief idea of what in the West Bank life was like for Israelis, for Palestinians that lived in that region. Take a look.
Hebron, the occupied West Bank. The chatter on a soldier's radio tells us we're being watched. Hebron is a place of religious significance, which makes it a magnet for some of Israel's most extreme settlers, Jewish communities who've illegally taken over Palestinian homes.
But what's unique about Hebron, unlike any other Palestinian city, is that the settlers are here in the heart of the city.
Today is the Jewish holiday Purim, and the settlers are celebrating arm in arm with Israeli soldiers. Palestinians in Hebron are some of the most heavily monitored and controlled people on the planet. In the military surveillance laboratory that is the occupied territories, Hebron is ground zero. Hebron is the West Bank's largest city, and it's being hollowed out from within. The Israeli military enforces a policy of separation here. The city was divided into two sections in 1997, H1, where the Palestinian Authority has nominal control, and H2, which is under full Israeli control. Israel's authority in H2 is designed to protect 800 settlers living here illegally according to international law, amongst around 40,000 Palestinians. One of those settlers happens to be Itamar Ben-Gvir, who has been convicted of inciting anti-Arab racism and supporting a terrorist group. He is now Israel's Minister of National Security. To safeguard the settlers, Hebron's sacred old city is under military lockdown. Some parts of H2 have been designated sterile, that's the official term, areas where Palestinians are forbidden. Over the years, the locals have seen the environment around them transformed. inch by inch, house by house, checkpoint by checkpoint.
Hebron is full of what the Israeli military likes to call friction, that lends itself to many new ways to innovate technologies that promise to reduce this so-called friction and make Israel's occupation more humanitarian for Palestinians. This is what the Israeli military claims. The streets are covered in CCTV cameras, in facial recognition cameras that give the Israeli military and the intelligence forces a full 24/7 and encompassing view of Palestinian life in the city. I think the best word for it is carceral. The feeling that prison is not within a bounded space, but it follows you wherever you go, into the city's streets, in your home, into your bedroom, and that there's no escaping it.
The Israeli military likes to call Hebron a smart city. It's a euphemism for the elaborate system of surveillance and facial recognition they are operating here on Palestinians.
And then now, in this recent war that's taking place, the same thing, even on a much worse and devastating scale, people in the north of Gaza now are to flee and run south, as I showed you. I want you to look at the people who had to leave everything, carry few meager things, probably clothes and little things, from their homes that they have now established in Gaza where they were put, and they're all running south, leaving everything behind. And while Israel is bombing their houses, their neighborhoods and houses are flattened. Even if they go back, they're going back to rubble. But they have to leave and flee. Watch this.
Taking only what they can carry, families are fleeing Gaza City. They wave white flags made of anything they can find. And as the sounds of war echo around them, they signal yet again that they are innocents. Now we're supposed to be in the safe area, but you can hear the bombs behind us, he says. All of our houses are gone. Nothing is left. The Israeli military has been calling for weeks on all those living in the northern part of the Strip to move southwards, most recently opening what it called safe corridors for limited windows of time, pushing thousands here to Salah ad-Din Street, where evacuees describe a harrowing journey. We saw along the road destruction, dead bodies everywhere, and the Israeli tanks would demand to search the youth, she says. We saw one young man stripped naked. We witnessed unbearable scenes. The only way to reach the route is by foot or by cart for those who can find room. There was heavy shelling on our neighborhood and we were forced to flee. We have to use these donkey carts because there's no fuel, he says. They cut everything off to force us out of our homes. Israeli troops are now in the heart of Gaza City, as Israel's defense minister apparently declared the entire city, the whole of the enclave's largest population center, a legitimate target.
Gaza is the biggest terror stronghold that mankind has ever built. This whole city is one big terror base. Underground, they have kilometers of tunnels connecting to hospitals and schools.
The UN calls this exodus forcible displacement and accuses Israel of the collective punishment of some 2 million people. And many fear they will never be allowed to return home. Some here say this is reminiscent of the Nakba, the Arabic term for the expulsion of Palestinians from their towns during the founding of Israel. We walked a very long way. It felt like the Nakba of 2023, she says. We walked by dead people who were ripped to shreds. Children were very tired because there was no water. People were dying, and there were elderly who couldn't walk. And for those who do make it, bombardment and siege await them in the south, too. There is no true escape. Salma Abdulaziz, CNN, London.
Now I want you to look at the book of Luke chapter 20 and 24, the destruction of Jerusalem. But when you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies, then know that its desolation is near. Now what is this desolation? It means that there will no longer be Jews in the land. when Israel or Jerusalem is surrounded by its armies. Now, this prophecy is not about the end of days. This prophecy was about when Rome destroyed Jerusalem. And that was in about 70 AD. When Romans came and they conquered Jerusalem, destroyed everything, the temple, the land, the buildings, everything was destroyed. The Jews were displaced, and from then on Palestinians took over. So God had prophesied, this is in the book of Luke now, that Jerusalem will be surrounded by armies. In other words, when Rome came and surrounded Jerusalem and destroyed it in 70 AD, that was the fulfillment of that prophecy. Now listen, I don't want to make light of what I just said. Luke prophesied. In other words, Jesus prophesied and Luke rewrote the story. And Jesus said that Jerusalem is going to be surrounded by armies. And Jesus passed away or died, was killed in 33 AD. So about 40 years later, this prophecy that he made came to pass, where Jerusalem was surrounded by the Roman army and its desolation began. So let's read that prophecy. So when you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies, then know that its desolation is near. So from then on, there was no more Jerusalem, no more Jews, there was nothing. Then let's continue with that prophecy. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let those who are in the midst of her depart. And let not those who are in the country enter her. For these are the days of vengeance, that all things which are written may be fulfilled. But woe to those who are pregnant and to those who are nursing babies in those days. For there will be great distress in the land and wrath upon this people. And they will fall by the edge of the sword and will be led captive into all nations, and Jerusalem will be trampled by Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles are fulfilled. So, from that point on, after the Romans conquered Jerusalem, there will be no Jerusalem, it will be desolated, and Jerusalem and the surrounding land will be occupied by Gentiles. Those are non-Jews or fake Jews or people who are not truly from the line of Jacob, Israel himself. So Jesus has prophesied that that land will not be occupied by Jews ever again. So what is there now? In Jesus' prophecy, what is there now can never be the true Jew. Now I want Britannica to enlighten us a little bit. Let's look at that siege of Jerusalem in 70 years after Christ, 70 BC. The siege of Jerusalem, Roman military blockade of Jerusalem during the first Jewish revolt. The fall of the city marked the effective conclusion of a 4-year campaign against Jewish insurgency in Judea. The Romans destroyed much of the city, including the Second Temple. Now in April 70 CE or AD, about the time of Passover, the Roman general Titus besieged Jerusalem. Since that action coincided with Passover, the Romans allowed pilgrims to enter the city but refused to let them leave, thus strategically depleting food and water supplies within Jerusalem. Oh my goodness. So you see what Romans were doing. Now who are the Romans? The Romans, I showed you in previous scriptures, are the descendants of Esau, because Esau grandson Zeppo settled in Rome, and from there, they were now Edomites, if you know that Esau is Edom. The Edomites lived in Rome, and they were controlling Jerusalem during the time even when Jesus was there. So, the Edomites came and they surrounded. When I say Edomites, I mean Romans. And they said, if the Jews want to come in to Jerusalem, they can come for their pilgrimage. But when they entered, they didn't allow them to leave. And when they were there, they didn't let food come in, they didn't let water come in. Now doesn't that ring a bell about what is happening to the Palestinians in Gaza? It's like history is repeating itself. This time it is done by the same people who were doing it to the true Jews in Jerusalem at that time. Now let's look at the book of Luke that we were reading in verse 21. Let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains, let those who are in the midst of her depart, and let not those who are in the country enter her. Can you see Jesus was telling the Jews, don't go into Jerusalem to do pilgrimage when this event takes place. When you see Rome surrounding Jerusalem, don't come into that place. And just like he prophesied 40 years before, about 40 years later, those people didn't listen to that prophecy, and they came in, and the Romans didn't allow them to go out and denied them food and water. So what happened? They died inside of Jerusalem because they didn't follow and listen to the prophetic word of Luke that spoke the words of Jesus. I want to introduce you to something that we're going to talk about next. It's called a sentient world simulation, a digital twin. DARPA, you know what that is, Avatar project, links your mind to a digital world inside of a Dwave quantum computer. This is a lengthy video, but I want you to watch it because it's terrifying and very intriguing. Terrifying for those who are probably going to be left behind after that trumpet sounds. So watch this.
For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day.
It's backed by Jeff Bezos, founder of Amazon, NASA, and the CIA. Each one costs $10 million and operates at 459 degrees below zero.
It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations.
They call it the Infinity Machine, quantum computing.
Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed.
If you go all the way back to Norwood Wiener, the goal of creating artificial intelligence was to create an all-seeing eye, a global computer that sees all, sees everything, and to become gods.
And the Sentient World Simulation, SWS, went live in 2007.
Right now, we're inside a computer program.
Is it really so hard to believe?
These nanobots, these blood cell-sized devices, will be going in our bodies. We'll have some go inside our brains through the capillaries, non-invasively. They'll be interacting with our biological neurons. They'll put our brains on the internet, and they'll also enable us to enter a virtual reality environment from within the nervous system. So if I want to go in a virtual reality environment, the nanobots will shut down the signals coming from my real eyes and my real skin and create the signals that would be appropriate for the virtual environment, and then it'll feel like I'm in that environment.
This isn't real.
What is real? How do you define real? If you're talking about what you can feel, what you can smell, what you can taste and see, then real is simply electrical signals interpreted by your brain.
If we have algorithms that stimulate the right things and give it the right data, they could reprogram you in a way without you even knowing it. We call it hallucinating, right? But these would be controlled hallucinations run by algorithms. So you think you're in control of your own will, but it's actually some evil AI or evil people controlling everything we do, and we're more like zombies, you know? Like we think we're free and we're not actually free.
It is called the Sentient World Simulation. The program's aim, according to its creator, is to be a continuously running, continually updated mirror model of the entire planet, complete with billions of nodes representing every person on the Earth.
Targets and mind control victims have their minds linked up for life with conscious supercomputers, which send a steady stream of bidirectional, low-frequency electromagnetic radiation to the target's brain.
And what people have to realize is that these targeted individuals are basically the test stage for rolling all of this madness out to all 7 billion of us on this planet.
And this was a white paper put out by Purdue University in 2006, and the Sentient World Simulation, SWS, went live in 2007, which represents every person on the planet within this computer matrix as a node, and every node is given an avatar, an identifier. And that is real-time, 24/7 monitoring of every person on the planet. This is primarily, but not exclusively, facilitated by the adiabatic quantum computers produced by D-Wave Corporation.
At the time of initial reports on the program, there were only 62 country-level simulations being run by the US Department of Defense. These simulations grouped humans into composites, with 100 individuals acting as a single node. But already at that time, the US Army had used the systems to create a one-to-one level simulation of potential Army recruits.
It's the stuff of a Hollywood movie, but a group of veterans has filed a lawsuit against the CIA and US Army claiming that the government planted remote-controlled devices in their brains. The claims relate to a government program at the US Army's Edgewood Arsenal in Maryland.
The ultimate aim would be to archive enough data on each individual to be able to make a computer model of everyone on the planet.
The human genome, we have a finite in the hundreds of thousands of different genes across our species. And we mapped them out in the Human Gene Project. Well, now it's the Human Mind Project, the Global Brain Project. You know, President Obama just recently funded a whole bunch of scientists to decipher the mind. Well, our previous president, same thing, George Bush, said the same thing. They're trying to decipher every possible thought and uniqueness due to culture and language and whatnot.
And the goal is to make a cognitive model or map of the victim's brain. Ultimately, the system replicates and digitizes the will, intellect, and emotions, the soul of the targets, and downloads this back into the conscious computer.
Robots the smartest people. Artificial intelligence, AI. The idea is to port the software from the human brain. First, we're going to need lots of cheap, fast, parallel computers.
He was referring to parallel processors, about servers. What he did not state was that it is actually the quantum computer systems coming out of D-Wave that actually creates and drives this new matrix known as the SWS. It is not transistor-based servers that run this. They are qubits, quantum bits. It is the SWS and D-Wave that comprises this new matrix.
Second, we're going to need to scan individual human brains in fine spatial and chemical detail to see exactly what cells are where, connected to what, or what type.
We could scan my brain from inside, sending scanners through the bloodstream, billions of them, in the form of nanorobots or nanobots, and capture every detail of my synapses and neurotransmitters, and create a virtual Ray Kurzweil in a very powerful computer. And it would be indistinguishable from me. It would pass a Ray Kurzweil Turing test.
And third, we're going to need computer models of how each kind of brain cell works, taking input signals, changing interval state, and sending output signals. If we have good enough models of all the kinds of brain cells and a good enough model of a brain, we can put it together to make a good enough model of an entire brain, and that model would have the same input-output behavior as the original. So if you talk to it, it might talk back. If you ask it to do things, it might do them. And if we could do that, everything would change.
The Manhattan Project gave us the atomic bomb. The Genome Project gave us the human genome. The third great initiative could be the Connectome Project, to map the entire human brain. And that may take a quantum computer.
Okay, the first thing I can tell you is that M's spend most of their life in virtual reality. While this is what you would look like in virtual reality, this is what an M would look like when virtual reality. It's computer hardware sitting in a server rack somewhere. But still, it could see and experience the same thing. But some things are different for M's. An M can make archive copies, and with enough redundant archives, an M can be immortal, in principle, though not usually in practice. And an M can move its brain, the computer that represents its brain, from one physical location to another. M's can actually move around the world at the speed of light. And by moving to a new location, they can interact more quickly with M's near that new location.
Emulation is really what we talk about in the SWS as the nodes, the avatars. Every single person on the planet, okay, out of Purdue University's own paper in 2006, every person is assigned a avatar. They're represented computationally in the AI system that drives the SWS as a computer node, but they're given an avatar marker. Take the avatar and hang the word emulation on it. In other words, they've been tracking us, they've been reproducing us, reproducing our metadata for years.
We can model every single atom, every single molecule with a three-dimensional structure in every single brain.
They claim they've modeled the personality of every adult in the United States, 230 million people. And SCL, the mothership group, they do work in any number of countries. They're involved in politics in many countries. They put together a micro-shot personality assessment for everyone.
M's are very much like humans, but they are not like the typical human. The typical M is a copy of the few hundred most productive humans.
If you construct a model of the human brain, you can then plug people into this hive mind. You could, as an intermediate step, take these duplicated neurons, artificial warm and wet qubits, as I call them, and you can integrate those into an actual human mind. Thus, you are able to control that human mind with artificial neurons and then have those minds connected to each other, just like you network and daisy chain computer systems. That is the hive mind.
And this means that in the future, communications could be done mentally. What I'm saying is that the internet will be replaced by BrainNet.
They control the mind the same way that they teach the AI computer systems at the high level of AI. We're not talking about cars and trains and planes and automobiles. Okay, we're talking about AI that is so sophisticated that it operates a sentient world simulation, so sophisticated that it actually taps in and controls the mind.
And Google was the primary interested party that pulled this whole thing together. What they're going to do is apply this machine to an area that I think is fundamentally important. It's the crux of our future as humans, and that's, can we build machines like us?
We can model every single atom, every single molecule with a three-dimensional structure in your entire brain.
That level of precision will keep advancing to the point where it's absolutely indistinguishable, even at the very, microscopic level. So you could recreate an entity that's, even if you looked inside of it, its simulated brain would be processing information just the way I do.
Beloved, in this video, people like Xbox and PlayStation and all these game making companies made a game called the Infinity Machine. and it talks about this very same thing. Let me explain also, but before that, Ray Kurzweil is a Google engineer. Kurzweil is a public advocate for the futurist and transhumanist movements. Transhuman, to make humans into something else. Well, to change what God made. And gives public talks to share his optimistic outlook on life extension technologies and the future of nanotechnology, robotics, and biotechnology. In other words, these people want to live forever. And they want to create this world, this virtual world that will house your spirit. Well, so they think. These things that we saw in the video is real. Now, let's look at the next thing that was mentioned in this video. The Connectome Coordination Facility talks about the Human Connectome projects. The Connectome Coordination Facility houses and distributes public research data for a series of studies that focus on the connections within the human brain. These are known as the Human Connectome projects. So we finished with the Genome project. We now with the Connectome project. Now this D-Wave that you keep hearing, Quantum Systems, is a Canadian quantum computing company based in British Columbia. It's the world's first company to sell computers to exploit quantum effects in the operation. D-Wave's early customers include Lockheed Martin. We read about them and what they're doing in the South Pole. University of Southern California, Google, NASA, and Los Alamos National Lab. Now, for those of you that may not have understood much or a little of what was happening, they want to study the data in your brain. On the surface, everything you do on Google, everything on your digital social space that you use, your laptop and your phone, is recorded about you. It's data collection. And so, with that limited information, they know what adverts to target you with. They know what you probably will want to buy. So they flood you with certain adverts. They sell that information currently to companies that want to sell their products. And so when these companies go to collect this data from them, they say, these are the people that will most probably want to buy your product, and there's a list of them. So the collection of information is being fed into something that probably we won't be able to conceive right now, that supercomputer. But they want to take this to the next level. They want to now put something inside you that can read your every emotion, read your every thought. And they want to make a copy of you in the virtual world, like an avatar. You know, when you play this game, you make something that looks like you on a computer screen. They want to do something like that, but on an advanced level, where your entire being can sit on your couch and you can smell and touch and feel everything through your avatar in the virtual world. So that's another you. So if your body dies, they think that's you now, inside that avatar is still living. And they want the whole world to be filled with these avatars instead of the not normal human bodies. That's why when God destroys the earth, they feel that they can use these avatars to live on Mars. And so the whole idea is to make the human being dysfunctional. Evil is the English word. Dysfunctional is the exact translation. So God wanted to enjoy the human. Satan wants to displace the human, remove them altogether. Beloved, we're living in the brink of a very dangerous time, and I don't want you to take lightly that the things that they were putting into people were all designed to carry out the same function, and the intricacies of which we may not be privy to understand. But one thing we know is that evil is behind these things. So we have to be, this is not the time to take your eyes off of Jesus. This is not the time to backslide because of personal problems. Because Jesus never answered your question. You acted stupidly and you want Jesus to solve that stupidity. So you backslide and you pull away and you take your focus off Jesus. This is not the time to do that. One of the reasons I've shared with you before is that if the devil petitions and God removes his protection, that could be the end. The people behind these technologies are very much ritualistic in Satanism. Now, they get instruction direct from the enemy, the spirit of darkness, the supreme being of the Freemasons. One of these articles that were recently, you would heard there's some upheaval with the CEOs of all these companies, OpenAI and so forth. Now, one of the articles tells us that OpenAI employees say that the firm's chief scientist has been making strange spiritual claims. The quote was, "Feel the AGI, the artificial general intelligence. Feel the AGI." Why does it feel like everybody at OpenAI has lost their mind? A key character in the spectacle has been OpenAI's chief scientist and board member, Ilya Sutskever, who, according to The Atlantic, likes to burn effigies and lead ritualistic chants at the company. Sutskever has established himself as an esoteric spiritual leader at the company, per The Atlantic, cheering on the company's efforts to realize artificial general intelligence, a hazy and ill-defined state when AI models have become as or more capable than humans, or maybe, according to some, even godlike. His frenemy Altman has long championed attaining AGI as OpenAI's #1 goal, despite warning about the possibility of an evil, dysfunctional AI outsmarting humans and taking over the world for many years. This Sutskever guy was born in Russia, then called Gorky, at the time part of the Soviet Union, and at the age of 5, immigrated with his family to Israel. Whoa! He spent his formative years in Jerusalem. Sutskever attended the Open University of Israel between 2000 and 2002. So this evil, it's coming out in the technologies that is available. This is the reason, beloved, I warn you once again, especially young people. I want you to fix your eyes on Jesus. You're never too young to call on his name and keep focus. Make sure that in everything you do, you pray and you ask his favor. You ask his mercies. And God will be your protector. And I say this about, in the last months, but in this last week, my heart breaks when I see through my social media so many young people passing away for various reasons. Many, if not most of them, are church-going people. 29, 30, 35, 40. They come and sit in the church on a Sunday morning, not realizing the danger that lurks. As I shared with you, what they're doing with the climate is not normal times. What's infiltrating into the air, what has been put into the blood of many people, is all designed to kill, to destroy. So when you come and sit, don't take it for granted that because you are in the house of God, listen, the house of God is firstly here inside of you. Because you're sitting, you will be safe. That's why I say don't fix your eyes on a church, don't fix your eyes on a pastor, fix your eyes on Jesus. He will inform you. And that's what I do to keep my people safe. So these people, they come, I want you to take a look at the list, and I feel for the bereaving families, I feel for the people who have lost their lives, innocently coming and sitting, not realizing that their life would not last another week. Just in one day there were 3. You know, I was coming from a church, passing a church to come and minister this word this morning. And there's a funeral taking place. So be vigilant. And most of all, be prayerful. And that's why the Lord has led me to continue online. Because every person that comes under my covering must be protected by what God gives me. And if I have any other motive, God will take away His presence from me. So I've got to guard the people He put under my care. I cannot put any other priority above that. And that's why I ask you, beloved, if you seek the face of Jesus, you will be in tune, in communion with God, and in communion with every decision that I choose to make. And I want to thank so many of you for being watchful, for being prayerful, for having the mind of God to understand. You know, there is a message that surprised me this week. I mean, I get messages every week. And it becomes cumbersome to tell you about it every week. But trust me, people around the world have become members of our Trinity family. And I received this message from a person called Julia. Let's read. Hello, I am Julia, and I wanted to just introduce myself. I am from and live here in East Tennessee, USA. I want to tell you how much I truly enjoy your sermons and videos on YouTube. You have helped open my eyes to so much. I can already see a difference in my life because you have brought me closer to Jesus Christ. All glory goes to God. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and knowledge from God. You are a blessing to me. Every week, I look forward to another video while trying to catch up on your videos that I haven't seen yet. My pastor was the one who sent me your video a few months ago, and I was busy with other things, but I praise God for allowing me to start watching and learning. I've never met or heard anyone else like you, and you keep me wanting more of the word from God. He has been so good to me. He healed my liver disease. It is gone. I used to be addicted to drugs and alcohol, but He turned my life into new. I am a new creature. We are poor and we struggle, but we have Jesus. We eagerly wait for Him. We know this place is just our temporary home, and that our home that Jesus left to go and prepare is where we belong together with Him. God bless you and your family. May God always bless you abundantly and always shine His face upon you. In Jesus' name, amen. You know, it warmed my heart so much, as if God was speaking to me, to let me know that what you do to help me with your finances, with your tithes, your faithfulness, with your prayer, is not going in vain. People's lives are changing. Thank you for being part of that. Please continue with that walk, because Jesus is winning souls everywhere. And it's all because of people like you. So this warmth I share with you as much as it's warm to me. And I want you to know that when God rewards, there are things He will reward you for that your eyes have not even realized that you have done. So thank you, beloved. I want to take communion with you all this morning. Shall we take communion together? Shall we pray? Heavenly Father, I thank you for your blood that was shed to save me. I thank you for your flesh that was torn to save me. Lord, we want to partake in this so that we can become part of you and you can renew your relationship with us. Father, cover us all in your blood and let us continue to fixate on you so that you can give us wisdom to live this life in victory always. Bless the communion into our bodies in Jesus' name. Amen. Let us take the bread. Let us drink of the cup. Thank you for sharing this moment with me, beloved. I pray you have a beautiful week and a safe December. Remember, when anyone petitions for your life, God is the ultimate decider. As long as you fix on Him, He is your protector. God bless you. See you next week.